All right, so hi everyone. Welcome to another Meet the Devs episode. This is episode number 18. And today we got Chris and we got Troy, aka Trickery. Troy's been kind of our like he has the best pulse kind of on the balance side of things. And as you know, we launched a new season soon, and with the new season and the new class and everything, a lot of changes and a lot of stuff was like maybe not exactly perfectly balanced. And yeah, today I think they're going to talk a little bit about some of the plans forward, some patch notes. I believe the patch notes might be public already, right? Or not yet?
Uh, yeah, I think they just got posted
Okay.
on the Steam page.
Okay, so yeah, you can like sneak peek right there. They're public, and we'll talk a little bit about kind of decision making and stuff like that. Yeah, Troy's been cooking, Chris has been cooking. So there's the intro. Yeah, you guys can take it from here. So I'm sharing the deck.
Yeah.
We're talking about Wizard first.
Yeah, so kind of like what you guys are saying, today's just going to be talking about a lot of the classes, and then at the end there's some other conversations just about like other bugs and issues and things that we're working on. Generally, I think the classes are all feeling pretty good. Like in terms of like when I play them all individually, I think they all feel like really great. The kits and things like that. Yeah, there's a little bit of bugs and some tuning things here and there, but generally I think pretty good. It's always hard to when you launch a new class in a live game to get the balance right or to get like yeah, I guess just get the balance right. Um, but I think generally the wizard is still feels pretty good and is generally, you know, pretty good. But I do think he's a little overtuned, and we're going to tone him down a bit. So some of the ways that we're going to tone the wizard down basically is one is his fireball. His fireball, his main attack that's on the staff, just does a lot of damage. One thing that we didn't intend is that with the fire patches, when you summon them after you shoot a fireball, they do damage over time, and then the fireball also does damage over time. It puts like a damage over time on you, and then obviously the fireball when it hits you does some damage. So there's a lot of just sources of damage that the fireball has, and the fire patch. When you summon one fire patch, if there's like three there, they all are doing damage to you. So it's like three dots, and so just a lot of just sources of damage there that will also, if we had balanced around that, it would just be each fireball would have to be really low damage to account for that. So basically what we're doing now is making all the fire patches be one source of damage. So when you summon two, three fire patches on top of each other, it will just be one source of damage there. So it'll just be one dot basically. So that's like one big thing that we're doing. We're toning down the affliction buildup a little bit as well on the fireball. It will just take a little bit more, like another fireball to trigger the affliction for it. So there's that too. We reduced the wizard's base health slightly. I think that'd be like 50 damage or something, 50 health or something pretty reasonable. Just to try to accentuate that goal with the wizard, which is him to be a glass cannon. And so he's got the cannon, but he doesn't really have the glass. He's kind of the steel cannon right now. so anyway, yeah, we're gonna tune that. His evade attack is really strong. We're making that not do stagger anymore, as well as the Phoenix normals. We really love that the Phoenix is powerful, and because it's an epic, a spell scroll, and so we still want that to be the case, but it doing stagger is probably just a little too much because when you're fighting a wizard, he's zipping around. There's multiple mirrors up shooting you. The Phoenix is shooting you. You're like, what's going on? And it's just a lot of staggers happening. And then gravity well, we're also reducing the effect of gravity well, so it's not as too crazy. I think needing to evade twice out of it if you're not playing right makes sense. 3, 4 evades is like too much. And so yeah, we're toning that down. But that's kind of like the highlights of that's pretty much the bulk of these changes. Again, we're not trying to really drastically swing the pendulum one other way. We're trying to be surgical with some of the changes, but I do think all these are sort of warranted, and this has been all of your feedback. I looked through all the surveys that you guys submitted, and that was another goal too for this call was to go through the survey, but I felt like the classes was just going to eat up the entire Meet the Devs, so we'll just do the survey next time around. But a lot of the wizard feedback pretty much dominated the feedback, which I understand is the most popular class right now that we added. Anyway, Troy, do you want to like add any color to any of these line items here, or any details that you notice in chat or anything?
Yeah, sure. As always, there's definitely a couple more things. These are just the highlights. So if you guys want to see the full like nitty gritty detail, check out the patch notes. But I would say some other stuff is we kind of changed the overload and the overcharge skills a little bit. Overcharge is like kind of a big one with the Spellweaver Helm. He was getting 3 instant cast full charge fireballs with a full bar of charge power. So now it takes like 5 charge power for the instant cast with the Helm. So that should hopefully make an impact in how relentless the burst is from the wizard. And overload we actually kind of buffed like a little bit. We let people have manual control now over like stopping the drain on the charge power by pressing the button again. So hopefully bringing that up and giving people some more control over managing their charge power with it will make it a little more competitive with overcharge. Yeah, and I think the flame patch thing. Hopefully that makes a big difference in the small and like especially the crypts is where we've been hearing like groups of multiple wizards is super oppressive. And we looked into it and each flame patch was ticking for damage every like half a second. Sorry. So if there's 2 wizards just spamming flame patches on a doorway, you would just get melted and it would instantly proc combustion pretty much as soon as you stepped foot in there. So hopefully that is greatly reduced now. I think there's probably that's it for other highlights.
Yeah, just one quick thing I wanted to add about Gravity Well is you guys were right. The area of effect of the spell was larger than the visual. So we made the visual match the actual size, but we also reduced the actual size a little bit. So when you play it now, it's gonna look bigger. It's gonna look like a buff, but it's actually smaller. But it's like the visual is gonna actually match the the effect of the spell. So yeah, just so you know.
Andre, did you want to give an update on the Frost Orb? I know some people are asking about it in chat.
Sure. So Frost Orb is like in terms of production, it's getting very close to finishing. It's close. It's like 90% done. It needs some VFX and stuff like that. It's very different from the Fire Staff. It's like almost the opposite, and it serves kind of like different purposes. Fire Staff's supposed to be just big splash damage, kind of hard to hit. Frost one's gonna be a bit more precise. I don't want to spoil too much. I'm just gonna say a bit more precise, bit better against melee. With Fire Staff, you kind of struggle with melee. I mean, Frost is good against ranged as well, against hunters. It kind of covers the weakness that the Fire Staff has. I don't want to give too much away, though.
No, yeah, it's looking really good. I'm really excited about that one. So it's coming soon. All right, yeah, we can move on to Priest now. Yeah, Priest. So Priest got a new spell this patch. It was something that I wanted to experiment with, which is the Priest is in our game. And Priest is a support class, and she's kind of the only one that we really have right now until we have the Paladin soon. And a lot of times it makes total sense if there's a support in a group that they will be targeted first. And so the idea with this ability with Heaven's Ward, changing it so that it has like a dual purpose. It could be used as initiation because you turn immune and you kind of move faster, and the Heaven's Fury effect, which is the AoE stun and damage, happens at her location. So you could use it for initiation, but you could also use it for like defense too. If like you're being targeted, you can use Heaven's Ward to like get some distance and that sort of thing, or just punish people on top of you. So it has a lot of different like uses there. I do think it came out the cut a little strong, and so we're toning that back a bit. One thing is toning down the sprint on it, like the increased movement speed, and then I think the immunity window is getting toned down slightly. So rather than just turning one knob a whole other direction, we're just like turning them all slightly to kind of see how it goes. We are still in early access, so a lot of these things is experimental abilities and experimental tuning and that sort of thing. So we do our best out the gate to see if they will hit the mark, but it's always impossible. It's just literally impossible to really kind of predict there. So anyway, yeah, toning that down a bit, and that was also a large part of your feedback too, I think too. Guided Star, we toned down Guided Star's damage as well. Guided Star is supposed to be used, which I did see a lot of use so far this season, is being used for like around corridors, which is really great in the crypt, especially. And there's a lot of interesting plays you can get with it because you can be behind line of sight and kind of use the star to hit somebody. So there's a lot of really cool uses for it. However, it does compete with Gleaming Star, which is very simple. You just use the ability at like smart targets somebody and does damage. What we don't want is Guided Star just always be the best damage in every situation. What we want for all the different abilities to have strengths and weaknesses in different situations. So, one idea I have long term with Guided Star is it does more damage the longer it's alive. So if you have Guided Star up for like a second or so, it gets fully charged and it does more damage or something like that. Or I don't know what the right numbers are there, but that's kind of nudging it towards what its intent is supposed to be. What we don't want to use Guided Star is a ghetto Gleaming Star. You just summon it and just move it forward like literally a yard, and then it's just more damage than Gleaming. You just never use Gleaming Star or something like that. So there is that. And then the other thing that we're looking at, that we're working on, is Spirit Shell. Spirit Shell is where the priest holds her block, and then she gains like a shield on herself. It's part of her core kit of just how she plays. I think the frequency of guided or Spirit Shell is too high right now, and so we're nudging this. We have a few different knobs here. One is the cooldown, the effect, how long it lasts, that sort of thing. And so anyway, we're working on toning down Spirit Shell while trying to keep it like cool and signature to her kit. But anyway, I do think with a lot of the bugs that we fixed with the priest's traits and all of her other edge issues, she's feeling pretty good. One bug that we're working on right now is making her prayer cards function correctly on allies. I know that the mending one, which clears wound, doesn't really work on allies right now, and it's kind of frustrating. This is because we redid a lot of the interaction code in the game, and so this part of it broke. So we're working on fixing that, and hopefully we'll hotfix that soon if it's not part of this patch. But anyway, that's kind of the summary on the priest. Yeah, Troy, did anything else to add there? You're muted, by the way.
Yeah, I was muted. There's not too much to add here. It's possible the Guide Star is still like really good in damage. We might have to continue on with Chris's ideas and could have the damage scale or something to sort of make each star still have a place. But yeah, also it is interesting to see people play with the Guide Star this season, because last season there was issues where you would be stuck in place and stuff. So now everyone's been playing with it, and we're aware that there's more issues with the Guided Star. We're gonna try to get fixes in for that probably in another like future patch, and as well as the support for the like Azerty keyboards and stuff for the Guided Star, and being able to handle like changing the key bindings. Yeah.
Yeah. Some other things to look forward with the priest in the future is we have other ideas for new alternate abilities for the mirror. Actually, different types of mirrors that we won't talk about yet, I guess. but yeah, that is also something that we're working on that we may that will be something to look forward to. All right. Feel free to move on.
All right.
Sure.
Song's Warrior.
So yeah, the Warrior. The Warrior. So one thing to think about with the Warrior as well is the Warrior since last. It's just innate with the Warrior, and we noticed this last season too. Is just that as the season goes on, the Warrior gets a little bit better. So that's something that we have to keep in mind. A lot of his best traits are in the end of the trait tree or circle or whatever you call it. So that's also something we should probably think about. Maybe we move some of them closer into the internal ring, so it's less. He gets better towards the end of the season, but we do felt like the warrior was could use a little buff here. So we are increasing the rage generation when you block. We're increasing his base health to make him feel like he is the meatiest class in the game. And then we're increasing the effectiveness of his enrage abilities a bit. And then, yeah, maybe Troy, you can add some detail to these because I know you worked on these.
Sure. Yeah, when you block attacks, right now he gets rage based on how many block like pips of block damage the attack did. So it's a slight increase. We're hoping that it makes him not so like rage starved when trying to like close the distance against range characters like hunters and whatnot. Yeah, base health went up just slightly. It should result in a decent amount more overall effective health. We're trying to push them apart from like the rogue and the hunter a little bit more. The enrage abilities, one of the big ones here, if you guys looked at the patch notes, is the rampage. Now you still need 60 rage before you can start the rampage skill, but the big difference now is every time you take a swing, it out of the 4 hits that he does, it then subtracts a quarter of that rage cost with each swing. So it's like 15 each time he does the attack. The reason for this is there was a lot of frustration I heard from warrior mains like last season when they would press their rampage button and a priest that is good at aiming like a Heaven's Fury would just instantly like negate their rampage as soon as they start it, and it's just like 50 rage just kind of got flushed down the drain. Hopefully this sort of helps that, and also I think it could make for some more like depth in the counterplay on the priest or whoever is trying to stun him to interrupt it or do like a silence or something. They might intentionally have to spend a dodge and like wait out like 3 of the attacks because they want them to be at lower rage or something after they do the interrupt, but they're risking dealing with those 3 attacks. So I think that'll be interesting. Another big one that isn't on here because I just got it working like literally yesterday, the day before, so we weren't super certain if it was going to make it in the patch, is we try to buff the death ball weapon skill a little bit. What it does now is when you throw it out, it doesn't do the knockback anymore. Instead, it just pierces and does like a flinch. But it does the knockback when you pull it back, because a lot of people were saying when we changed it, it was very broken and overpowered at the start of last season when it was like a hard stun, like a cheap shot basically that you could spam at a range. So we made it the knockback, but people are like, this isn't very useful because I'm a melee character, and when I throw it, I'm pushing the guy away from me, and I don't want to be doing that. So we're hoping that like by piercing on the way out and then doing the knockback on the way back, you can use it to like pull people towards you. And we also juice the damage like a lot. Like the total damage is almost doubled, I think, on that skill because you're having to spend 30 rage for it. So we'll see if people start using that skill again. It should be interesting.
All right, yeah, and another experimental ability that we did for the Warrior 2 is Warpath, and so that's another one that we are still working on to improve like some of the presentation of it and like the VFX, sound, all these sort of things. So yeah, so and then we have a third alternate ability for the chain too that we are going to be working on in the future too to look forward to. All right. Anything else, Andre? Yeah, I saw you were going to add something. Go ahead.
I was just going to add the next slide.
Okay. Not a fan of the warrior. I see.
No, I thought it was over.
No, just easy. Go ahead.
So what do we have for Rogue happening?
Rogue. Okay, so yeah, Rogue. Rogue is getting some slight buffs as well. We're focusing a bit on stealth too. Stealth is just something we're always going to be taking a look at to get the right kind of balance for the game. It's been stealth every patch. We always get feedback on or questions, etc. So the stealth will be a little bit harder now to see on the rogue. And so there's two parts of stealth, right? People always get confused. There is stealth itself, and then there's invisibility. Like all the different stealth abilities give you slight invisibility for a second, and then or a very short time, and then you get stealth after that. Or sorry, invisibility then stealth. Yeah. And so we're not invisible is invisible. You can't really make that more invisible, but yeah, we are making stealth a little bit harder to see there. So something we're tuning there based on your feedback. We're also making Shroud the duration of invisibility increased from 2 to 3.5 seconds. So this is kind of similar to where it used to be previously, and then we're always going to be tuning these knobs based on the game, and we'll have to change things based on when we add new classes and everything. So doing that, the claw attacks is something that is the one category of abilities I think we will be improving, doing more passes in the future to try to get these just right. The kind of ideas that the rogue, if you've noticed with the wizard, he's adds affliction to you, which is like the fire affliction, and then in the future patch we'll be doing frost affliction on you as well, and that's another big thing, and then lightning affliction. So there's a lot of afflictions coming from the wizard, but the rogue is the melee class who applies melee affliction, and so you can kind of choose which one you want to do, whether it's hemo or disease or poison. And that's the intention of the claw attacks. But anyway, we have tuned down, reduced the energy cost of the claw attacks to make them more competitive in your decision making of using abilities. And then we've increased the distance slightly of the evades, tuning those up a little bit. But yeah, Troy, feel free to add some things here too.
Yeah, there's some more, a couple more slightly interesting things here. The rogue. I think the big one is Visage also got buffed. We gave it like a 30% run speed buff on the clone. It runs like the same speed as you if you're just like full sprint with your weapon sheet. It's kind of fun having him alongside you, but I think it was just hard for people to like land damage with the speed of our combat and stuff, as well as like use it as a quick like positioning tool. So that should be interesting to see. Hopefully see Visage get some more play. We do recognize though that Phantom Dagger right now just kind of seems to have like really like the best synergy with both weapons. But it'll still be interesting playing some Visage a little bit after this patch. I also try to buff some of the perks that were underwhelming. Like there was 2 of them. We increased the poison buildup on the poison swords. The Viper's Kiss swords. The other one is the daggers, the last word that applied the same mark that the swords do from the Blade Rush, where it lets you do hemorrhage buildup with your physical damage after you land it. The duration of that buff was like 8 seconds. We increased it to like 18 because the daggers sort of play around the cooldown of like cheap shot. So you would do one cheap shot, and you would do your setup and get the mark, but it wouldn't even last long enough to go in for another attack to capitalize on that debuff. So hopefully that is a little more viable of a playstyle now. The dual affliction dagger build. I think that's
nice,
it.
yeah. And I see.
Right.
Yeah, thank everyone for the feedback, because we're listening to your feedback when we make these changes as well. I see people saying thanks for listening. Well, thanks for giving the feedback. That helps a lot, obviously. All right, hunters. What do hunters get?
Okay, yeah, the hunter. So Swiftbow is so each class has like a 3 weapons right now, or is intended to have 3 weapons, and 2 of the weapons are kind of what you would expect. They're pretty common in every game, traditional, and then one of them is supposed to be a little different and experimental. Hunter actually has 2 weapons that are kind of experimental. One is a longbow, which is like a sniper weapon for a hunter, fantasy hunter, which you don't really see that often. You see that in like FPS games are not really in fantasy. So that is a little experimental. And then the other one is the swift bow, which is like a very short range, kind of almost like shotgun type of weapon. And so I would say the longbow and the swiftbow are still work in progress that we're kind of tuning and trying to get the right kind of vision there. And they're kind of challenging. I think design wise to do. But anyway, so we're going to continually be iterating on the swiftbow. This patch we made the right click do block. Reason why is because originally the hunter were like, well, she doesn't need to have block, she's ranged, and we'll just balance her that way. And I think we can, for the most part. But I think giving the optionality to have a block on a hunter weapon, I wanted to try that out to see how that would go. Because, for example, if we do like raid encounters where everyone must block at some point in time or something, or not raid encounter, but like dungeon or boss, like Morthog or another Morthog boss fight or something. It's nice to have as designers this kind of like conditional, where it's like, okay, everyone has block at this like AoE or something like that. So it's good to have like that mechanic as an option somewhere. So anyway, that's why we added block. And then it was also just experimental to see how that would work. The swiftbow is short range, so it's supposed to be like you're toe to toe with an enemy, and like you go from shooting to blocking to evading to sliding and all these things like that. So it also kind of makes sense there. But anyway, we have also in this patch heard your feedback that it's hard to crack enemies, mostly kind of PvE, but also players, I guess, that are blocking with the swift bow, and it kind of makes you not want to play it. So we have increased how much block damage or made the third hit in the combo, I think, do some block damage there, and then wild volley, which is the press and hold and release, do some block damage, the charge attack. Longbow damage reduced slightly. We did tone it up, I think, this patch, and then we just toned it down slightly. Bramble trap, I know this is like everyone's favorite trap right now because it has a lot of Bramble trap was kind of the terrible trap for a long time, and then we're like, what can we do to it? So we had all these ideas and we did them all, and then it's just like probably too much, and so we've toned down Bramble trap hemo build up a little bit here. And then Spore Bomb and Flying Seed Bomb had some notable bugs. Spore Bomb did not do instant damage. The idea with Spore Bomb is, because we got all this feedback, even internally, to call out Mel of just like, oh, all the bombs, like they have delayed damage, and I just want to do instant damage. And so we're like, okay, well, we'll make Spore Bomb that grenade, that bomb. And so it does instant damage and like a dot after it. And in this patch, for whatever reason, the instant damage broke, so we fixed that. And then also the Flying Seed Bomb, the vision for this bomb is more of like proximity mines, like sticky bombs, basically, if you ever play TFT, that kind of thing. And there was some bug with it where they just like exploded way too early, like in 15 seconds. It's supposed to be like they last for like 3 minutes, and so we fixed that. They also don't blow up on the hunter anymore. That was another bug. For some reason, this grenade always breaks. But anyway, yeah, we fixed that as well in this patch. All right, anything else to add there, Troy?
Let's see.
I know the spore bomb. It's funny you mentioned the spore bomb was. I just want to add this real quick. The spore bomb wasn't doing explosion damage like intended. However, it was doing explosion damage, but only on yourself.
Oh, we didn't see it.
No.
Wait, what?
Yeah, the instant damage was only on the hunter. So if you shoot it at your feet, only you would take the instant damage, but not the enemies. But yeah, we a slight little miscalculation. Yeah. Fixed now though.
Okay. Looking at the full like patch note list, actually, I just found out that there was something else that didn't make it in. We'll have to update the patch notes. We addressed the Thunder Arrow double hit thing. We heard about that, like because it could pierce and it did the explosion. People were shooting it through people's feet and then getting like 800 damage instantly or whatever. We got rid of the piercing for now. I think it'll be cool if we can figure out how to make that work again in the future without that double hit. But we buffed the damage. That's the part that didn't make it in the patch notes. So the thunder explosion should be like way stronger now, and that's what it does on impact. Yeah, I think that's the only other change that's not on here. Oh,
Okay.
shock beetle's explosion radius got increased by 30% too. We do think that the shock beetle still needs some help though. It's really hard to balance the like survivability of the shock beetle, the tankiness of it, so that there's counterplay, but like not having him so tanky that it's impossible and it's just a guaranteed stun again is like another cheap shot, but this time it's just an AoE with homing. Like we don't want it to be that good, but we do think it needs to be a little bit tankier somehow in the future, where it doesn't just. I think somebody said their shock beetle just dies to a stiff breeze all the time. Is what I heard someone say the other day. So hopefully we can figure out how to continue to balance it at some point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not going to give up on the beetle. I think one idea with the beetle that we talked about, we just don't have the time to do it just yet, but something we may experiment with is the beetle may just need so many hits. So not like damage, it's just like subsequent hits. So anyway, that's something we may experiment with. We're going to see how this goes and tune it afterwards. All right. I see people asking about the Paladin. We want to talk about the Paladin very soon, probably in the next coming weeks. And start that conversation going. I was trying to think of something fun we could do for the Paladin, maybe like a brainstorm with the community on some abilities or something like that. Anyway, I have to think about it. But yeah, we will share some stuff with the Paladin. I was just seeing a lot of the art being done for it, and Andre is working on it right now as well. So yeah, there'll be some cool stuff to talk soon about that. Yeah, in terms of popular topics for the community, I was talking about a song of like, what is, I mean, I'm in the community a lot. I'm reading what you guys are saying, and I was just replying to some threads, even in the Steam discussion forums yesterday. So I'm kind of in tune with everything, but I was asking Sung, what are the big things you guys are talking about that we could address? I know there's a number of bugs with the lodge and with in general, I guess, but really kind of with the lodge. One that I know is becoming more of a thing as people are progressing it is there's this bug with the lodge where after you unlock level 3 of the fireplace and it will just revert back or something like that. And so we found the bug with that yesterday, and so that's in this patch 2 that will be fixed. Yeah, disappearing transmutations, that's another thing that we're addressing in this patch or very shortly after. Yeah, and so there's a lot of things that we learned as well with the lodge this patch that we're going to iterate in the future next season that we'll talk about later. But generally, I think it's coming along. Some quality of life things that we are planning that I wanted to share is we're going to be adding a button to each module or each furnishing, like the loom and these sort of things like that, where you can import all of your cloth and stuff like that into the loom just with one button, rather than having to like go through all of your stash tabs. The other one is we're going to make it so that when you're in the loom, or you're in the tanner, etc., and you're going through all your different stash tabs, it saves like the placement or where you're at and like which tab you're at in your stash, so you're not like, oh crap, I have to like go back to bag 3 after I switch tabs. So we're going to fix that as well. And then making it control click so you don't have to double control click. A lot of people don't understand that. It's a current bug with the game right now. Yeah, I know there's a lot of people asking about sort and auto sort button. That is also something that we are working on as well. Curious, by the way, on the auto sort thing, feel free to share feedback on how you would expect that to work. Because I think there's multiple ways to do that, right? It could be sort by type, sort by this one item, just fit all my items in my bag, sort by color. I don't know. So yeah, so share your feedback on that, kind of what's your expectations of how that, not in this chat, by the way, you could do it in the Discord elsewhere. But yeah, so that's stuff that we're working on there. And then the Crypt Night Map tuning progression. I know there's a lot of topics about this. It was just perfect because they're new maps now, and we're adding this kind of vision. We're working on this vision of like progression through the maps. Last Meet the Devs, I talked about how there's 3 tiers of maps. There's entry tier, which we don't have right now, which will be the farm that we're going to be patching in the future. And then the second bucket is what Greenwood Day is. And then the third bucket is night, for example, Greenwood Night, the Crypt, and then there'll be other future maps there. And as we add more maps, they'll go in those 3 different buckets. And so anyway, we're trying to get like the progression and the feeling right, because with the Crypt map you have to wear some green gear. With the night map you have to wear some whites. So the risk versus reward should feel worth it, and so this is something that we're trying to get the right feel, the vibe, or the right tuning for. One thing that we're talking about right now is that the night map doesn't have enough of the higher tier ore or the higher tier wood, and so we're going through the map and making sure like that's to juice that up, as we like to say internally, and improving how many of the higher tier woods are in the map. The other thing for the Crypt is swapping out a lot of the containers or the treasure chests, etc., inside of it, so it has higher tier loot. You open a lot of the treasure chests and they're the same ones that are in Greenwood Day, and so we're going to do a higher tier version of those that will have a bit better rewards in there as well. So those are 2 big things that we're going to be working on. In the future, we'll also be adding more of like bosses or like higher tier mobs in the Crypt and the night map that feel also like something else to shake it up and to do. So these are all things that we're working on internally now that we will patch in the future. But yeah, really appreciate everyone's feedback on kind of the map and whether it feels like worth it for queuing into there and all of that. So one other thing I would mention too is over the weekend we changed it so that the Crypts you can queue solo or duos, and we took out trios. This isn't intended to be like a permanent thing. We're rotating some of them, and I think Sung has already scheduled and posted about that schedule. Right now we're doing it like manually, but in the future the idea is that some of these things will rotate, and so it'll feel like there's different opportunities, different maps, different things up all at a different time. And then also in the individual maps, the long-term vision is that Greenwood Day, Greenwood Night, etc. will have different dynamic things that are happening in the map, or when you spawn in, things will change. Like one thing that we want to add is rain, and so maybe you go in there, it's raining, or you may know like before you queue, but it will tell you like, hey, it's raining, and so things may change in the map. There may be a new creature type that spawns when it rains. Maybe try to guess what that would be. and that creature would drop a certain item that you will need, you'll want, that's rare and for progression, stuff like that. So anyway, we want to do a lot of dynamic events, and so that doesn't always feel like the same like in the individual maps. And by the way, your feedback in the survey was by far wanted more depth to the current maps, less so new maps. It's not to say we're not going to be working on new maps, we are, but it's just interesting to hear your feedback that it'd be great to have more dynamic events and shake things up in the existing maps, and that's totally what we want to do anyway. And then so we'll have that, and then we'll have like the kind of the different map schedule, so we'll feel like fresh and like things are just they'll just feel good. But anyway, those are the 2 things that we pulled out threads from that we felt like we saw a lot of feedback with. And then now for those of you who are joining us for the first time or returning, we do the second half of this Meet the Devs, where we just answer your questions. It's the thing that we look forward to most. So I know we've been talking a lot because there's a lot to go through with this patch. Didn't even go through all the other things in the patch notes, and there's a lot of bug fixes and iteration there. But looking forward to hear everyone's feedback. So if you just raise your hand, Andre will call on you, and then you could ask your question, and we'll try our best to answer as many as we can.
There you go. I'm inviting someone right now. Mr. Satorix, first of all, congratulations on your legendary staff. I hope you still have it.
Yo, thank you.
I didn't hear about that.
Yeah. It's absolutely saved. It's the safest legendary staff in the game, actually, in my hands.
There it is.
Thank you guys, doing great. Really appreciate it. I did have one question. Since I started playing the game back in season 0, there has been a lot of this progression for each class that has changed how they function so much. Like even these slight changes, it doesn't feel like their gear matches the classes like they used to. Is that something that you guys have on your radar still, is to switch these gear sets to match more to what the classes do now?
Yeah, that's a great question. We try to address some of the perks, the item perks, as we change the class, but a lot of things change fast, and so we don't always have the time to do that. And yeah, we will be changing. I think if you look at the perks that you have on your gear today, and in like 9 months, 6 months, something like that, they will be different. And they will move closer to where the play styles of the classes end up. So yeah, I do think that is something on our radar. That's something that we talk about a lot. A lot of assumptions. For example, one was when we did the design of the priest, we are like, oh, we love the mirror, and it would be cool if you shoot things through the mirror and it gets amplified. And there was all these things about the mirror. That really hasn't became as much of a thing. So there are a few of the perks that are like, oh, if you put your gleaming star through the mirror, it does 30% more damage or something like that. Like that isn't as meta as we kind of thought. So and it just didn't kind of work out with how kind of the combat system is. So yeah, so that's a good example of one that could be swapped out to something else. But anyway, long story short, I agree with what you're saying, and we will be going through a lot of the perks, probably this milestone too, to revise some of them. Another big one is the warrior. We introduced, for example, Warpath, and a lot of the perks do not work with Warpath. That's something Troy and I were talking just yesterday about. So yeah.
So when you say this, I actually just forgot the word that you said. Oh, milestone. When you say
Yeah.
this milestone, are you talking about season 1 or like season?
Yeah, sorry. I mean, like it will probably be towards between this season and season 2, which will be the next one.
Gotcha. Perfect.
Yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
hard to say when it would be because it priorities shift on a daily basis. But
Yeah, it feels like that's
yeah,
something that you do when you're a lot closer to finishing the class, or like your vision is
yeah.
coming closer to what you want. I get it. I was just curious if that was coming. Thank you guys again. This has been awesome. The patch is awesome. Community loves it. We love it. Thank you guys. Seriously.
All right, thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much. And I'm gonna invite Mr. Nart for another question. Hello.
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 Hi. Do you think we will have a redemption queue for people who've died a lot to go against other people who've died a lot?
Oh, sorry. Say it one more time. A what?
A redemption queue?
A redemption queue.
What's a
Yeah,
redemption?
How do you imagine that would work? Is a redemption queue kind of like so yeah, if you die X times in a row, you get some sort of buff or something, or
to go against people who've died a lot as well. Just so like everyone who's like kind of a bad player, they're all just like going against each other.
Interesting question. Yeah. We do have this a newbie queue in the game, and I think it is important in the game that people have a chance to kind of learn the game at their own pace. And it is a hard game, and it's a complicated game, and so it's great that you asked that question because the next major patch we're focusing a lot on newer players. Because I mean, this is actually another big thing that everyone here said in the survey, which was kind of surprising to me because I thought, oh well, most people who are going to fill out the survey are most hardcore players, but actually a lot of you said it would be great for Legacy to update their new player experience, to help teach players the game, and to get more players into the game. Everybody wants more players to be into the game, so. I think that's an interesting idea that we'll talk about. I've actually never really thought about something like that, but it makes a lot of sense.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for the question.
Thanks for the question. Okay, let me get in a new person. More questions, guys. Keep them coming. Hello.
Yeah, I'd like to know about the chest. If you could put a lock on the chest, so you don't have to move them around, so you could lock them in place. Because the items get mixed up in the chest if you move them on top of each other. And also, when you're making stuff like armor, can you put them in your regular bag instead of putting them in the chest, so you don't have to dig around in your chest to see where your armor went?
Hmm. Troy, do you have an answer for that question?
Wait, so you're talking about dragging armor? I'm confused. What's the
I'm
flow
talking
you're
about
talking about?
I'm talking about like when you're looking in your chest, and if you accidentally drag a chest on top of another chest, it moves all the
Yeah.
items
Stash container. Yeah.
Yeah.
off the chest.
Okay, yeah.
So
Okay,
do
yeah.
that.
We I know exactly what you're talking about. We talked about this week too. Yeah, so there's this issue in the game where in your stash you have all these tabs and they have different containers in them, and you could drag a certain container in it and it changes the tab because the container dictates how big it is and what type of items it holds, etc. And sometimes when you're dragging from one container to another, like a tab, you accidentally do it and it gets all messed up. Yeah,
Correct.
that is something that we do not like and that we're looking to fix in the future. Um, yeah, we have an idea on how we want to fix this. Basically, is to make it so. I mean, TLDR, it won't do that. Yeah, we want to fix that so that doesn't happen because it is a pain. Someone on team meticulously organized their stash to be. Yeah, I don't know. They probably spent like their Sunday doing this and then accidentally dragged it, and we're very upset about that. So yeah, I hear you on that. It's something that's on the list for sure.
And then also when you craft items, can you put them in your own bag instead of the chest bag? And so
Yeah,
you
so
don't
you
have to
want it
put
to go in
anything
your
in your
inventory, your
chest bag.
backpack, not the stash. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, interesting.
'Cause
I'll
you're
write
always
that one
looking, you're
down.
always digging through your
We can maybe
chest
have that
if
as
you
an
don't have
option.
enough
I would
room
say
to
some
make
players
one
might
extra
want
chest.
that different. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I said, because when you craft stuff, if you don't have enough room in the first chest bag, they're dropping in all the other chests. So you're digging through all the other chests looking for what items you just crafted.
No, I gotcha. I gotcha. Yeah, that's an interesting idea. We will talk about that.
All right,
Thank
cool.
you.
Thank you so much for the question.
Yeah, thanks for the feedback. Yeah.
It's good
I know
stuff.
people care a lot about their stash and like the organization of it and stuff like that. And it is like I mentioned earlier, we also want to add like a sort button and long-term ideas as well as to add some things like a sorted stash container we call them, which is like the UI will like for example, it could be specifically for potions. If you think about Path of Exile, they have affinity. I think it's called affinity. Stash tabs, that kind of idea. So it's not another thing that we long term want to work on. But anyway, thank you for the question.
Thank you guys. You're doing a great job.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, let's get Mr. Practice in here.
Oh. Hi guys, I'll try to not speak too quickly with the Scottish accent. So first and foremost, thanks so much for all the hard work and stuff. The patch seems pretty good. It's kind of two questions really. There's a couple in the chat that were really good, so I'll sneak in three. The first one is from season 0 to season 1. I've kind of realised I'm just new to the game, but from watching content, everything was all about melee and rogues, and then this season you've kind of given range to be on top, which is really healthy for a game. Is that kind of like the games that are in the markets just now? Certainly a lot of different games from different genres. Is that kind of planned with kind of a healthy, not to leave things to be stale? Is that kind of throughout it when it comes to like keeping an eye on certain things being stronger than others? For example, I'm sure everyone here can agree that, as you quite mentioned, the steel ball that was a mage, I don't know how many games where people would group up and lose to really, really good players that were playing mage. So that was my first question for like a balance in patches and whatnot. Is there going to be a close, like, is that kind of in the goal set where you're going to keep things kind of fresh? Or is it kind of you're still, everything's experimental and that's a lot further down the line?
Yeah, interesting question. There's a long answer here that I won't go into, but Yeah, Troy knows because we were talking about this topic this week too. Um, um, so to kind of echo what your question was, it was like, yeah, so season 0, this was sort of the meta. Season 1, this is the meta, and it's different, which feels good and fresh. Was that intentional that you're like totally shaking up the meta to be very different because you like that or you think that's healthy? Yeah, I think because I think what some people in the chat thought you meant is you prefer range to be the best. But no, I know that's not what you're saying, I don't
No,
think.
not at all. Not at all.
Right. Yeah. I think TL, I think balance is really hard to do, and I think it's impossible to really have perfect balance. And so, what a lot of games do today, like for example, League of Legends, what they do, or Dota, is every patch they just totally kind of just change things. They go hog wild changing stuff so that the meta changes. People rethink about it. They kind of like min max. They kind of theory craft, what the best thing is, and that's fun. You know, Whereas if you got, I don't know, a council of 30 of the best designers in the world and locked them in a room and they figured out what the best balance of the game was and they did it, I think that would actually be boring for the community.
Yeah,
And so
absolutely. Yeah.
actually kind of like shifting things and tuning things and making stuff that players have to figure it out and like the meta shifts is kind of what it feels like the community kind of wants. And so I wouldn't say that's like intentionally what we're doing, like just like turning every knob and going, let's see what happens. Like we're not actually doing that, but in effect, that kind of happens a little bit because it is so impossible to really theory craft and sim out every little change, especially in a PvP game. PvE is a little bit easier.
Yeah.
You do test dummies and blah blah blah. But yeah, for PvP it is harder to do. So I wouldn't say it was intentional, but I do think that it's probably something to expect that every season or every now and then we will patch class changes, introduce new class, and the meta will shift a lot. And I know that's exciting for some players and maddening to others. So it's just kind of how it is in a game like ours, I think. But I don't know if that answers your question, but it's an interesting
absolutely.
philosophical thing to think about.
Yeah, I think that nobody likes to be the worst at the party, so to speak. Like everybody should get a shot on top. The other thing that was kind of brought up that was really interesting is I've never played a game where people are so. What's the best way to describe it? As a new player and just playing the game, the community's pretty sound. Like you can actually say to someone, "Yo, dude, I'm picking up some apples. Like I'm leaving," and there seems to be a very large amount of people like, "Yeah, that's cool, man. GG's. I'll pick you up. On you go." I think that by allowing you to pick people up, was one of the best decisions you made. But I saw something that was added in the chat that was really interesting to try and make that an incentive to do it in a sense, like so to be some sort of weird reward, or even stat that's on your character sheet for not just like when you're playing games to be toxic's one thing, but to also to reward, like League and Honor and things like that. Is there anything like that that's in the pipeline at all? Has that ever been thought about to try and at least give it some sort of does that make
Yeah.
sense? Sorry, I don't know if I've not worded that correctly. Apologies.
No, I know what you mean. Yeah. So you mentioned that we added this feature to the game now where you go to execute someone, you could choose execute them or pick them up. And I've heard time and time again, a lot of people really like this. It creates a lot of little interesting social situations and moments. You may have experienced
It's
one
honestly
person
one of
that,
my favorite things about the game. Genuinely, like third
yeah.
party and someone helping out, open conversation during like 4 people running around each other, and everyone picking each other up, and then going "GG's boys" and just walking away. It's one of the most fun things in an environment. It's like genuinely, and kind of most games don't really have that kind of aspect to it. So whoever made that decision, like definitely give them a pint at least. But yeah, no, the last one was just
Yeah.
obviously you've got the community Discord and things like that. When it comes to your kind of like mixed queues and people talking to each other, you've got in-game voice and things like that. So there's a big massive reward on like sound, such a big factor in the game. So for example,
Mhm.
like everything needs, like you're going to be getting like you aggro something, somebody loot something, everything like that. There's never any sort of plans to have any sort of void press like that. It's all just kind of based in, no, that's really important, keep it to the game. If you want to take things external to Discord and such, that's never going to be changing in any way, shape, or form. Because I've only like dabbled in the kind of higher end of the stuff, and there's a lot of guys that are like anything that gets kind of said. If you don't have something that's planned, going to a Discord, there's no way to kind of talk to each other without it being known. So like, if that makes sense, like if you know people, it's great. If you're a newer player, you're kind of at a disadvantage. And apologies, because I can see everyone saying I'm yapping. I'm just trying to give a contextual question instead of just
Yeah.
going, this, that, thank you, bye. I'm trying to,
No, I know. If we had unlimited
express it
time,
a
I
little
would
bit.
love to
Yeah.
talk with people, especially long form. So, because it's how conversations are. But yeah, we're kind of short on time. But anyway, yeah, I appreciate that you like that feature, and I do agree. Like VoIP and sound is really important in the game too. We do want to add other ways to communicate, like standard text chat too. It's something that we're working on in the future, and that will also help in a ping system and stuff like that. These are all things that are on our roadmap that we want to add to the game in the future. And then I think with that feature, with raising other players and creating that kind of social dynamic, I've mentioned this before, and we'll talk about it in the future when we talk about the paladin. But my vision for the paladin is to add, like, he's sort of the police of the game, and he can know if people are executing other players and can choose to like kill them, and maybe that they drop a certain item when he does that, or I don't know. There's a lot of really
That'd be
cool,
really cool.
interesting things that we could do with like these sort of social systems and stuff like that. So anyway,
Hey, thank you. Get me out of here before I'm lynched. I don't want to get lynched, but no, thank you guys. I appreciate taking up a little bit extra time. Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank
No
you.
All right,
problem.
thank you.
Thanks for the questions.
Tracking total revives in a season is cool. That's a cool idea.
Yeah,
Thanks,
that's a cool
man.
idea.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna invite Mr. Kirito. He's a server booster, so it's pay to win. Inviting him for a question. Hey, how's it
Hi
going?
guys, good evening.
Hello.
So I have a few questions about inventory. So the first one is actually when splitting items in like stash tabs, the splitted item will move to the first available space in another container. Maybe we can make it like it will move to the same container where you split it from.
Okay, wait, say it one more time.
So when you split an item, right, in a stash or in a container, the splitted item will go to the first available container. Could we make it like it will move to the same container, like?
It's kind of similar to the question we got before, where they were saying if they craft an item, they want it to go to like a specific container they kind of expect, but it always goes to the top container with the free slot. So if you split some, you have like a bunch of.
So you want it?
Yeah.
I think
I
you want
didn't
it in
know
the same
that. I thought it
container.
would go to the same container. It goes to the first container.
Yeah,
Okay.
it just goes to the first container that the space is available.
Yeah, we should probably fix
Okay,
that.
yeah, we'll look at that. We'll write that one down. We'll take a look at that one.
Okay, and another one. When could we make it like we could like drop specific amount of items? Like now it's just splitting, but maybe you could make it so we can choose how many you want to drop or split.
Yeah, that's on the list too. We did the very quick Minecraft implementation of stat splitting, which is like it just goes in half. Because to do like, choose how many you want to split and stuff like that is a little bit more time, and so we just didn't want to spend all that time on that. So we did, but that is the plan that we want to do in the future. Yeah.
All right. And just a quick one, I found out on the Discord that a lot of people were asking about what the usages are for certain items. Could we make it? Could we maybe make it like we could add like show all recipes for that certain item when you right-click it?
Yeah, I would love to if we had something like that in the game. It's something you kind of do at the end of the game's production, though. So if we would do something, it'd probably be towards the end of Gold Master. But yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. So that's probably the one thing you see in our Discord chat is everyone like, "What? How do you make this? Or what does this do? Or where do I find this item?" So part of that is part of the game too, though. Yeah. Anyway, thank you so much for your questions.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
So we've tried
Thank you.
to hint with the recipes and the descriptions at least.
Yeah.
Just FYI.
One thing Song wanted me to mention, guys, is that based on the poll he made, you guys decided that you prefer 1v1s and 2v2s. So we're gonna have a 1v1 deathmatch this Saturday and then a 2v2 deathmatch this Sunday. And you can also download the new patch on Steam right now, actually. I just wanted to get that out of the way. And I think we are at time. Do you guys have time for one more question?
Yeah, we could do like one or two more. I know, like,
Okay, we have a lot of
we
questions.
took a while in
We
the
have
presentation. Yeah, we could do a few more. Let's keep going.
I have a ton of questions. So, all right, I'm gonna invite Mr. Defax.
Yeah, while we're answering the questions, you could download the patch now on Steam.
What's up, gentlemen?
Yeah.
Hello, hello.
Hey, I just two quick ones. First one being execute immunity. Can we maybe change that so players aren't immune to player damage, and maybe, or they are immune to mob damage but not player damage? Does that make sense?
Troy?
Wait, what? The player's immune to mob damage but not player damage? Are you saying
Yeah,
like a
correct.
PvP only like a zone? Or
No. I'm just talking about the execute in general, the immunity that you get from the damage.
oh, the execute. Yeah, the like crazy full immunity stuff that's happening with the execute is also a byproduct of all of our like interactions having been redone this patch. So there is some sort of weirdness there with like you don't get stagger like interrupted out of it, I think, right now.
Yeah.
And all that. We'll put that on the list for stuff to try to bug fix for like the next big like hotfix patch or something.
Right out. Second one, crafting time on transmute recipes. Is that going to be dialed down at all? I know some guys are a little upset about 6 hours for purple. So.
Yeah, the transmutation device, all the craft times on it, or a lot of them are experimental. So over time, I think even in this patch, we've changed a number of them, and in the future we'll massage them as well. The idea is that like this is a bigger conversation that we could have at some other point in time, but some of the lodged features in the very beginning when you're crafting things with them, it's like they should be very quick, like a few minutes at most or something like that. But then the long-term ones, for example, the fireplace is the best example of this, is where it's almost like offline gameplay, like when you're asleep or something like that, you come online like, wow, I got 3 ash or something like that. The bed is also like this, like you're offline, you come online and you get all this rusted bar experience. So it feels like the game, even when you log on, there's things that you can loot and things that happened, and now you can, that sort of thing. So that's kind of like the idea. And so at the end with the transmutation device, in order for us to make really powerful transmutations, we have to kind of make it take a while. Otherwise, the whole economy will just become insane. And so that's just something that we have to like. But I mean, for example, oh wow, I want to convert 3 rough stone to a copper. That doesn't need to take a long time, right?
Yep.
So anyway, it's just about each individual transmutation and what makes sense. And so it's just something. It's a new feature. A lot of the transmutations we did very quickly. So it's great to have that now, though, because another thing I've noticed in the community, also in my own personal play sessions, is that I'm doing a night map and crypt a lot, but then not so much Greenwood Day. And I feel like I got to go back to Greenwood Day to get like field lilies and copper and stuff like that. There's a long-term vision of like the guild hall will do this for you. You get seeds and you plant them and you get lilies and stuff like that. But in the meantime, we may add like a way to transmute like the night jasmines into lilies and things like that, so that there's options here. Anyway, good question though.
Yeah. Yes or no question. Don't have to go in depth. I know you guys have 2 more tiers available on gear. Are we getting model visual updates on those, and for purples and legendaries, etc.? You think?
It's on the list for us to do. I mean, we would also like to make legendaries look a little bit differently as well. Yes, it's a plan. The yes or no question, it's planned. But I don't know why.
Perfect. I'll get out of here.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. You're doing great.
Thank you.
Oh,
Yeah, we can go to 12:15, so we could do
What's up,
another
guys?
7 minutes or so.
Hey guys, thanks for letting me ask a question. One thing, love the patch notes, everything's going great. I did have a question about kind of just the vision of the game with damage output and player damage. Obviously the healing elixir was removed from the game, and now there's a new glass cannon class with the wizard. So I was wondering if you guys were leaning into the more player burst, people dying with the increased damage, or if you guys are planning on maybe moving it back to, higher HP, more defenses like it was in season 0.
Interesting question. Yeah, I think we're still kind of feeling this out. I do think when things are like 3 versus 3, it feels pretty bursty. I think there was a post I saw somewhere, I can't remember, where players like, it's so fast, it's hard for me to understand what's going on. And we don't want the game to turn into that. We also don't want the game to turn into very slow pace, like for example, and then we've talked about this before in Amita does, but where the combat system started and what we first thought about was more of Souls-like, more of like light heavy attacks and evades and blocks, parries, that sort of thing was the base. And then we added abilities and it made it a little more dynamic, faster paced, added burst, added like more mechanics to the game. And so when you first prototyped it as that, it was kind of more what you're talking about. It was more slower paced, more methodical. It was like I always describe Dark Souls, or we describe Dark Souls combat as like jousting almost. It's just like poke and evade until I get a poke, and then 3 pokes are dead, that kind of thing. And I think there's that could work too. But the thing is, I think our game now it's the combat system is its own thing, and it's kind of unique, I think. And so, but we also don't want it to turn into everything super hyper fast paced and you die before you even get to react. Like we don't want that either. So it's hard to like distill exactly kind of what we want in terms of like time to kill or combat length, etc. But generally, I don't think we're that far off. I think with some classes, when things are overtuned, it becomes too fast. And so I think the changes to the wizard will help with this, of making it feel a little bit more similar to Season 0. So anyway, we'll see. But I think when it's too fast paced or too slow paced, we'll know. But I think right now it's kind of decent.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely, it was a little bit slower in season 0. The healing elixir change was great. I just obviously, you guys have a huge challenge because, something that feels slow in solos might feel fast in trios when you got 3 people on you. So I know that's definitely some levers. That is a tough thing to do because, yeah, solos feels great right now, especially with time to kill. I think you guys really nailed it. I think it's just sometimes the duo and trio, certain combos are, a little bit bursty, if you will. But I think that's somewhat intense. Trios to set things up. But yeah, thanks for answering my question. I appreciate it, guys.
Thank you.
Whoa. It's like a new record.
Hello. Hey, I just had a quick question on, now that you have the revive system, is there any way that we can loot the players while they're down? So if we do want to loot, we don't have to kill them for it?
Yeah, I've gotten that. I'm curious to see what the community thinks about this question because
I know
I can see it.
coming from like Rust, as like a survival game, you can loot them while they're down and get them back up. I think it's a good feature. So like if there's some things that I want, I can take, but I can leave like their gear or whatever else. So
Okay.
I've been asked this question a lot, and my response is usually that's like, I didn't know Rust had that as a built-in, like, officially supported feature with UI and everything for it. It was pretty cool. I think there is a little bit of magic though, right, to the political, like, social negotiation and dynamics that's happening with the way it is right now. When people are trying to do like a shakedown, like, it has to operate off of a trust system that the person's actually gonna drop the items they tell you they're gonna drop once you pick them up. It's sort of interesting, but it is frequently requested, so yeah, maybe we'll officially support it eventually.
Okay. Yeah, that's all I really had. So
Cool. Yeah, it's an interesting idea. We'll talk about it. It seems like the chat does like the idea. So, yeah, we'll talk about it.
okay, cool. Or maybe not even show their whole inventory. Just show like I don't know if this is hard to code or not. It probably is, but show like a third of their inventory. You know, see maybe there
Like a
is some.
preview.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Gotcha.
So anyway.
Okay, interesting idea.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks for the
Yeah, there
question.
was an interaction. I think someone on a team killed somebody, and they were saying, "I only have common gear," and they did. You could look at them; they only had common gear. But then when they killed them, they had the the anvil. You know, I was like, "Oh, that sucks."
Yeah.
He tried though. But yeah, if we had the system in there, you would have seen the anvil and be like, "Okay, bye bye."
I wonder, do you want to see? Do you want to just see what they have, or do you want to also be able to loot it? Because if you can loot it, then I imagine people will res each other a lot more, because you can just take what you want, and then might as well get them up. But if you just see it, and you know you hope you kind of trust the
loot
guy
it,
to
and
actually
then you
drop
could
it.
res them afterwards. Like, thanks for that. Bye bye. Yeah, I guess that's nicer. Yeah, for sure for the player.
Right. Right.
What if you could just chop off their ear while they're downed?
That too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
gonna invite Mr. Snow. He really wants to ask a question.
Yeah, I noticed a lot of people talk about Warpath. Yeah, Warpath is something that we're still looking at, and we're working on a better visual effect for it and some improvements and working with traits. So yeah, it's something we're doing. Okay.
Wait, can you guys hear me?
Right,
Hello?
last.
Yep.
Yep. Go for it.
Okay, cool. Wonderful. I have one question, okay? So there is a current problem with Melee right now where whenever we are fighting PvE, we have to keep our camera on the mob, right? And we are forced to be in close proximity of the mob, meaning we are leaving our backside open to an ambush. The problem I'm presenting is you have ranged characters in the game who can cheese mobs with no risk because they have a higher vantage point and they put themselves out of harm's way. Is there any possibility that we can bring back bone throwing on mobs to get these cheesing ranged players to at least be on the ground and put themselves in harm's way?
That's funny you say bone throwing, because yeah, we had that for a while. The bone throwing was so what you're talking about, just to share with everybody, is for a point in time we had, I think it was only in the PTR actually. I don't think we ever like launched it. I can't remember, but every mob in the game would have a ranged attack basically, and they were throwing bones, so we called it bone throwing. And this would help with ranged classes that were cheesing things or kiting stuff around, etc. We disabled it because there was a lot of bugs with it, and it also just was a weird experience running through the world and everyone throwing bones at you. It was just kind of goofy, and so, but I understand the reason why we experimented with that, which was to address kind of what you're talking about. I think when thinking about range versus melee, it's always going to be a challenge for us to design that, and that's why, like, season 0, people were like, wow, melee's so strong. I was like, well, it's a better thing when melee are working for a game, because it's very easy just to screw melee. Like, designers have such a good time, like, creating, like, oh, this mob whirlwinds and destroys melee and AoE zones and all these things like that. And for range, it's just like, whatever. But then for melee, it's just really frustrating. And so you are right in that melee and range is a different dynamic, where melees are cameras on a target. A lot of times when I'm on melee, I'm in a corner because the mob is getting pushed back to the corner when I'm fighting it and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a different situation. I think the knobs here that we should do first, which I don't think we're doing that great at right now, is hearing sounds. I think the combat sounds are too loud and it's hard to hear someone sneaking up on you. I think actually versus season 0 is a little bit better. There's a lot of reasons for this, because we were remixing the ambience and there's all these other things that we were doing, and it kind of got screwed up a bit. So that is one thing that we for sure should do first. Yeah. And then
I just wanted to jump in there because you brought up a good point.
Yeah.
Oh, Sorry, I just wanted to
Go
jump
ahead,
in there because
yeah.
you brought up a good point. The problem as well with Melee is the audio from fighting the actual mob is overlapping on like players running up on us, so we can't hear them until it's
Yeah.
too late, and then we end up getting, you know, double fireballed by a wizard or something, and the
Yeah.
fight is practically over. We didn't even get a chance.
No, I completely agree. It's something that we should focus on improving. So there's that. And then the other thing too is it's supposed to be intentional that Melee I think a good example of a good fight for Melee is if you fight that fire skeleton mage as a hunter or priest, or probably maybe wizard too, is it can feel scary and hard because that pyroblast, you can't block it. You have to evade out of that pyroblast, and it does this fireball volley, which is really deadly. But as Melee, he switches modes so that he does this flamethrower ability on you. And this one for Melee, you just kind of walk around it. He turns really slowly. So this mob actually is a little simpler for Melee. It's not like easy for Melee, but it's a lot simpler actually than ranged. And so we just need more mobs like that in the game too, where Melee, it's a little bit easier for them. Because basically, so many mobs in the game, they just melee with swings that you have to time, like, you know, kind of like a Souls thing. And that's challenging, and range doesn't even have to care about that. So it's just a lot of it's encounter design. I think a lot of it's sound. And so we should start there first before adding like Bone Throw to every mob. But, you know, that's something we could also consider if that makes sense for the game. But anyway, I think the spirit of your question about like the melee versus range balance in PvE and the threat and danger is totally legit, and it's something, yeah, we talk about a lot, and that we'll focus on.
I've got one small thing to add.
All right, cool. Thank you.
This probably doesn't perfectly solve what you're saying, but just fun fact: if you really don't like being forced to melee attack in the direction that you're pointing with your camera, there is a setting to turn that off. In the gameplay section in the menu, and instead your melee attacks will go in the direction you're holding with like WASD and where your character's facing. So yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I actually didn't know that, so I'll try it out.
Maybe you'll like it. Yeah.
Well, you can try
All
it
right.
right now because the servers are back up, so you guys can go try out the
Nice.
patch right now. Actually. Yeah, I think that's it, right?
All right, I think that's a good question to close it on, Andre. That was a
Okay.
good one. Thank you. Chat liked that one.
Yeah, I'm glad I found snow. All right. Thanks a lot for the questions, guys. Thanks a lot for watching. We'll see you guys next time. Enjoy the patch. Like I said, it's live right now, so you can go ahead and download it, play it out, try out the changes, and yeah, let us know what you think. And we'll see you in the deathmatch in the weekend. That's it.
All right, thank you, everybody. And just so because I didn't do it last time and Sung got mad at me, our reviews have gotten a lot better, and thank you so much. I do think the game is a lot better from Season 0 as well on Steam. But if you haven't made a review for Legacy Still and Sorcery yet on Steam, I really appreciate it if you do it. It really helps us reach more players and give us honest feedback too. And if we didn't answer your question today, feel free to ask it in the Ask the Devs channel, and I always pop in there every now and then to go through and answer as many questions as possible. So really appreciate everyone's support, and yeah, we'll see you in the game.
Yeah, see you guys later.